So I'm building a home arcade game, a little homemade bar top arcade machine. I got a bunch of buttons, joysticks, and all that. So if you're interested in seeing that get built, you can definitely check back later. But what I'm going to show you is this Raspberry Pi. For those of you that don't know, these are just little mini computers. And they're really cheap. I got the bare bones for, I think it was $34. And the way you program these is just an SD card. Once you download the program, that's going to be your operating system on this. So there's tons of options when you go for this Raspberry Pi. I went with the Raspberry Pi 3, and I just got the bare bones. I'm going to run it with the standard 2.5 amp cell phone charger. But they sell kits that have the actual Raspberry Pi power adapter. You know, you can get them with kits to where basically a solid kit like a external hard drive. You can get them with fans, heat sinks. You can get kits that have little 3 to 5 inch touchscreen on them. So you can build little portable gaming machines, standalone consoles, whatever you want. The options are endless with these little things. So there's a couple programs you can use. RetroPie is really popular. But I'm going to go with Recalbox. If you've never done this, I suggest you look into Recalbox because it's formatted to run the fastest and the best quality. So you don't got to do a lot of tweaking if you've never messed with Raspberry Pi. It's real simple. Your operating system is actually just going to be put on a SD card, and you're going to put it in, and that's going to run it. You can use an Ethernet cable if you want, but with a wireless built into it, I can add games on this, ROMs, whatever I want to do. I can do this over my network from my laptop or home computer. So that's what we're going to do. Here on the back, that's where your SD card's going to go. I'm going to run a 32 gig SD card. That's going to be plenty for the games I'm going to play. So it has the HDMI port. It has a headphone jack, Ethernet port if you wish to use it, or the wireless, and it has 4 USBs. So what I'm going to do is my first 2 players are going to be on these USB encoders. So that's going to be my joystick cabinets for player 1 and 2. And then my player 3 is going to be a wireless controller. I'm going to have a wireless dongle in here for USB. And then my player 4, I'm going to run a flush mount USB to the outside of the cabinet. And then I can use a wired controller or keyboard, whatever I need to plug in, I can do that from outside the cabinet. So let's get the laptop. I'm going to show you how simple it is to program this Raspberry Pi and put your operating system on. So I'm going to hand it off to the cat now, and she's going to show you the rest of the video. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, we got to format the SD card. And if it's under a 32 gig, you can format it right from Windows. But if it's over 32 gig, Windows can't do it unless you use an extra app. But mine's just a 32, so we're just going to format it to FAT32. So now that we're complete, we're just going to go to Recalbox. Like I mentioned earlier, that's the program we're going to use. Here's a nice little video they have up for their interface. It's really a good system. There's tons of different games. RetroPie does have a lot more settings you can do, but if you're not familiar with those, Recalbox makes it really easy just right out of the box. So you're going to go to the DIY Recalbox, and you're going to scroll down to step 2. We already got our hardware. We're going to install the Recalbox OS. Now with this, you're going to have to use Etcher to burn it onto it, which I'll show you that here in a little bit after the download completes. So here you find what system we're going to be running, which is, I got the Raspberry Pi 3, so that's the image we're going to download. So go ahead and fast forward this a little bit for the download to complete. Now we're going to download Etcher. And all this is doing is burning the image onto your SD card. Same thing here, I'm going to fast forward the download so you're not waiting. But it's a real simple program. Now let's download, we're going to install it. And then now I have the program open. I'm selecting the image we downloaded, which that'll be in your downloads folder. That's the Recalbox image. And then here's your device. If you have more than one, you may want to click it, look through, but I only have one removable device, so that's my SD card right there. And then we're just going to go ahead and flash this image. And fast forwarding through all this, you don't wait. This does take about 5 minutes. This is one of the longer portions of this setup. So now that we have it flashed, we're going to go back on the Pi, and we're going to show you some of that. So in order to get the files we need, we have to plug this SD card into the Pi and turn it on. It's going to do the little setup, and it's going to add the folders we need on that SD card to put in our ROMs and our other BIOS and files. That's just a crude setup. So now that it's up, now everything's set up right. So the camera quit working whenever I had it on the stand. But in here, all I did was set up my Wi-Fi and my password. And you're going to want to remember that IP address, which I'll show you again where it's at. And here, I already set the controller up, but the camera didn't take it. You have to use a wired controller or a keyboard to do this in order to use a Bluetooth controller, but after you're in there, then you can set it up real easy. So here, you need that IP address. One of the coolest things about Recalbox is how you can add files, and that's one of them. There's a couple different ways, but you need to write down your IP address. Then you're just going to need to type in your Wi-Fi, your password, or plug it in. So now we're back on the computer, and the Raspberry Pi is still up and running. There's two ways I mentioned you can put files onto it. Here's one. You do / Recalbox. Now you're going to bring up that share folder, and this is your Pi as it's running right now. So you have a BIOS folder and you have a ROMs folder. So here's all the systems that it has preloaded folders for. Mega Drive, that's going to be your Sega Genesis. That's what we're going to run first. I'm going to show you a couple files in this way to do it, and then I'll show you the web browser way. And these need to be zip files. So you're just going to drag the zip files over. So here the Game Boy Advance. Now I'm just scrolling. I'm finding the Game Boy Advance on the Pi. And there's the GBA folder. And here's a couple I was messing with earlier. I'm going to go ahead and delete those real fast. Because as you've seen, that was not a zip file. It will not work. That's a... So now you just drag your zip ROM that you want into that GBA folder. And now when you're on the Pi, you go to GBA. Those games will be there. So now what I think is the coolest thing about the Recalbox program is, you remember that IP address? Type that IP address, and it has to be hooked into your network. This has to be on your internet, wirelessly or with the data cable. So the cool thing about this program is it shows, here's your quad core, there's your four processors. So it shows you what you're doing, your memory, your temperature, all that, how much hard drive space you got on your SD card and on your Pi itself. So you got your ROMs. So here's your ROMs this way. You just upload ROMs. All you have to do is drag them over, and they load right up. This is the simplest way to do it. So here, I'm going on my computer. In my Explorer, I'm finding the ROMs I want to put on there. All I'm doing is adding it. I'm going to fast forward this a little bit. So here they are. They are on the Raspberry Pi right now. So this web manager is one of the greatest things about Recalbox. I love it. So now we're back on the Pi. Now you can either reset it, or you can go to this UI settings. You have to upload the game list. So you update game list. And restarting it will do this as well. It shows you the files that you changed. So now that we added games on here, now that we updated it, now they're going to be in here. So you got the Game Boy Advance. There's the 2 games I added. Now you notice there's no pictures. So we're going to show you in a minute what scraping is. That's going to bring in the original clip art. So here's the scraper in the menu. There's a few different places you can scrape from already saved into the Recalbox program. So here we're just going to select Screen Scraper. We're going to scrape now. And this is going to search the different sources you have for any of the ROMs that you have that don't have an image. So you can see Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 didn't have one. Doom didn't have one. So it's actually pulling these and adding these images and the different descriptions of the game. So now we're going to go ahead and try another source that we can scrape from. So right there it showed one that was missing. It found the Kingdom Hearts. So now when we go through, now Ultimate Mortal Kombat has that image right there and has a description about the game. So we're going to go ahead and load this up for you. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm using the PS4 controller. Now, they work perfect, but you have to have a wired controller or a keyboard plugged in first to actually use the left and right to go through the menus to select it. Then, once you select, search for Bluetooth controller, then it'll find your PS4 controller. Then it works just fine. You'll go through the setup. You can set up what your up button is, your down button, your X, Y, all that. So here we got this is a MAME game. This is Pac-Man. There you see I'm just pushing the select button. That's what I have set up to add credits. So the screen is a little off right now. I'll show you how to change that in a minute, but I added some credits. Here's a quick play of Pac-Man. That's professional right there. So under the menu, we're going to show you how you can change your screen size. There's a few different things. Also, theme set while I'm here. You can load different theme sets. Like right now, it's the standard Recalbox, but there's tons of them out there, like a comic book, and there's just different game themes you can do. But right here, it's your game ratio. That's your screen. So, the old monitors, like I'm planning on using a 4:3 ratio. Right now, I'm using a 16:9, using a widescreen TV. So we're just going to change it, and that's going to put your games where they need to be on your screen. And of course, there's tons of different ratios, tons of different things you can do. Recalbox is a very good setup. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're wanting to see me build this bar top arcade machine. Maybe get a better idea of something you want to do. And I'll see you next time. If you got any questions about this, go ahead and hit a comment down below and I'll try to answer them. There's a lot of great forums out there, but if you can't get it answered, just shoot me a question.